Right now, in the corner of my bedroom here in Okinawa, there is a small cloth bag hanging from a hook, and beneath it sits an old bowl. If you came and looked into that bowl this morning, you would find perhaps half a cup of water gathered in the bottom of it. That water did not come from a leak. It did not come from the roof or a pipe or a spill. It came out of the air, out of the damp, heavy, humid air of my island, pulled from the room by the white crystals inside that cloth bag. Crystals that cost me about $5 and that draw the wet from the air day and night, silently, with no electricity, no machine, no humming box in the corner, and no bill at the end of the month. My island is one of the most humid places a person can live. The air here in summer is thick enough to wear like a coat. And yet my walls do not sweat. My closets do not grow mold. My old bones are not troubled by the damp. And I have never once owned an electric dehumidifier. In a few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what is in that bag and exactly how to make one for yourself so that any damp room in your home stays dry for about $5 and forever. My name is Kenji Takara. I am 81 years old and I have lived my whole life on the island of Okinawa in the warm, wet south of Japan. If there is one enemy every household on this island has fought since long before there was electricity, it is the damp, the humidity that creeps into cupboards and rots the clothes within them, the moisture that beads on the walls and breeds the black mold that harms the lungs, the wet air that makes a warm room feel stifling and a cool room feel like a cellar. My grandmother fought this damp every day of her long life, and she won, using methods her own grandmother taught her. Simple things, cheap things, that draw the water out of the air the way salt draws the water from a fish laid out to cure. This is the way of Matanai, to solve a problem not by buying a costly machine, but by understanding the nature of the thing and using the humblest means to master it. And by the end of this video, the damp in your home will have met its match. But before I show you, I must tell you the part that should make you a little angry. Go into any store or search the great online catalogs and look at what they sell you for this problem. Electric dehumidifiers, great plastic machines that cost you $100, $200, even $300 to buy. And that is only the beginning of what they cost you, for they run on electricity, and a dehumidifier is one of the hungriest machines in the whole house. Run it day and night through a damp season as you must, and it can add $20, $30, even $50 to your electric bill every single month. So you have paid $200 for the machine, and then you pay again and again and again every month it runs to a power company that is delighted to sell you the electricity to dry your own air. And when the machine breaks, as these plastic things always do after a few years, you throw it away and buy another. The whole arrangement is a river of your money flowing out of your house for a job that a $5 bag of crystals can do in silence, for free, for years. They do not tell you about the crystals. There is no profit in a thing that costs $5 and never sends you a bill. Quick word before I begin, and I won't bring it up again. Everything I share here, there's far more of it than fits in one video. So I gathered it all into one book, the Takara Method, and right now I'm keeping it at a special price, lower than it'll normally be. The link's in the description, or point your phone at the code on screen. That's all. Now let me show you today's. Now here is where almost everyone goes wrong. And if you do not understand this one thing, your simple dehumidifier will do nothing at all, and you will say the old man was mistaken. So listen closely. Most people, when they hear that a cheap material can pull water from the air, imagine they simply set a dish of it in the middle of the room and wait for magic. And when nothing happens, they give up. Here is what they misunderstand. A passive dehumidifier. One with no fan, no power, no machine to pull the air through it. Cannot dry a whole large room to the bone. And any man who tells you it can is lying to sell you something. What it does, and does beautifully, is master the damp in an enclosed or a small space. A closet, a wardrobe, a bathroom, a pantry, a small bedroom, a cupboard, a basement corner, a caravan, a boat, a car. The trick is not to fight the entire ocean of air in a great open hall. The trick is to contain the space and then to place enough of the material within it, low down, where the cool, damp air settles. For damp air is heavy and sinks to the floor. Set your material high on a shelf and it will do little. Set it low, in a contained space, in the right amount, and it will pull that space dry and hold it dry for weeks. Containment, placement, and quantity. Get those three right, and the humblest material will astonish you. Get them wrong, and even the finest crystals will sit there useless. So what is the material? There are two, and I will give you both, from the cheapest to the finest. The first, and the one almost everyone has heard the name of without ever thinking to use it this way, is the very thing my bag is filled with, and it is sold, strangely enough, not as a dehumidifier at all, but for a completely different purpose, in a completely different aisle of the store, which is exactly why its true power has stayed hidden in plain sight. It is called calcium chloride, and the first step is knowing where to find it for a fraction of what the dehumidifier version costs. You will find calcium chloride sold under a name that has nothing to do with drying the air of a room. It is sold in most cold countries as ice melt, the salt you scatter on a frozen path or driveway in winter to melt the ice. A large bag of it, 5 or 10 pounds, costs only a few dollars at the hardware store in the cold season, and that single bag holds enough to dry the damp rooms of your home for a very long time. Look on the bag for the words calcium chloride. Some ice melts are made of other salts that do not work nearly so well, so read the label and choose the one that says calcium chloride. The purer the better. This is the very same substance the companies package in small plastic tubs, call a moisture absorber, and sell to you at 10 times the price. The material is identical, only the aisle and the price are different. This is the first and greatest saving. Buy the ice melt, not the dehumidifier refill, and you pay pennies for what they would charge you dollars. Now why does it work, and work so powerfully? Calcium chloride is what we call hygroscopic. It has a deep thirst for water. It does not merely hold a little moisture on its surface, as many materials do. It actively pulls water vapor out of the air and dissolves itself in the water it collects, drawing more and more from the air around it until the crystals have turned entirely into a pool of salty liquid in the bowl beneath. That liquid in my bowl each morning is the very damp that would otherwise have soaked into my walls and my clothes. The crystals do not evaporate it back. They trap it below as brine, where it can do no harm. This is why it is so much stronger than the other materials. It does not just absorb until it is full and then stop. It keeps drinking the air until the crystals themselves are used up and gone. Let me show you exactly how to build your dehumidifier, for it costs almost nothing and takes but a few minutes. You need 2 containers, one that fits inside the other with a gap between them. The simplest is 2 plastic tubs or a plastic cup set inside a larger one. In the bottom of the upper container, you make a number of small holes. A heated nail or a drill will do it, so that water can drip through. You fill that upper hold container with the calcium chloride crystals. Then you rest it inside the lower hole container, raised up on a couple of small stones or sticks, so there is a space beneath it. Now you set the whole thing in the damp place. The crystals in the top draw the water from the air. The brine they become drips down through the holes and collects in the lower container, safely away from the crystals, so the crystals stay working and do not sit in their own puddle. Every week or 2, you pour the collected brine away, down an outside drain, not your kitchen sink, for it is salty and can corrode metal pipes over time. And when the crystals have all dissolved and gone, you refill the top with fresh ones. That is the whole machine. 2 cups, some holes, a handful of crystals. $5 and no power on earth. If you wish it even simpler still, you may do as I do. Place the crystals in a breathable cloth bag, an old sock, or a piece of muslin tied at the top, and hang it over a bowl. The bag lets the air reach the crystals from all sides, and the brine drips through the cloth into the bowl below. This is the oldest way, and it works as well as any. A hanging bag in a wardrobe, a bowl in a cupboard, a tub in a damp corner, the form does not matter. Only that the crystals meet the air, and the brine falls away below. Now, where to place them? For placement is half of everything. Remember what I told you. Damp air is heavy, and it sinks. So you place your dehumidifier low, near the floor, in the coolest and dampest part of the space, where the moisture gathers. In a wardrobe, set it on the floor of the wardrobe, not the high shelf. In a room, a low corner. In a basement, on the ground. And you contain the space as much as you are able. Keep the wardrobe closed, the cupboard shut, the small room's door closed, for the material works upon the air it can reach, and a sealed small space is dried far faster and held far longer than an open one, with fresh, damp air forever flowing in. One good tub will keep a wardrobe or a small closet dry. For a larger damp room, use several, placed in the low corners. For a whole basement, a row of them along the floor. Let me give you now a sense of what this saves you, in true and honest numbers, for I will never inflate them. A large bag of calcium chloride ice melt might cost you $5 and, depending on how wet your air is, will keep a closet or small room dry for many weeks, even months, before it must be refilled, perhaps $10 to $20 of it across a whole damp season. Set against an electric dehumidifier that costs $200 to buy and $30 or $40 a month to run, you are saving not tens, but hundreds of dollars every year, and hundreds more that you never spend replacing the broken machine. For a household on a fixed income, watching every dollar, that is not a small thing. That is a month of groceries. That is the electric bill itself, in some homes. Now let me give you the extra layers, the things most people never think of, that make this humble method into a complete mastery of the damp in your home. The first, and the cheapest of all, for very small spaces, you do not even need to buy calcium chloride. You may use plain rock salt or even the cheapest table salt, which is also hygroscopic, though far weaker. A bowl of ordinary salt in a small cupboard or a drawer will draw a good deal of moisture, and it costs almost nothing. It will not master a whole damp room as the calcium chloride does, but for a musty drawer, a shoe cupboard, a small cabinet, it is free and it is enough. My grandmother kept a small dish of coarse salt in the cupboard where she stored the dry goods, and the rice and the flour never once grew damp or clumped. Use the strong crystals for the hard jobs, and plain salt for the small ones. Waste nothing. The second overlooked thing, charcoal. Plain charcoal, the kind for a grill, or better, the hard black lump charcoal, is riddled with countless tiny pores, and it drinks both moisture and odor from the air. A few pieces of charcoal in a breathable container, set in a damp and musty place, will pull the wet and the stale smell together. It does not collect water in a bowl as the salt does. It holds the moisture within itself, and when it grows heavy and damp, you may set it in the sun for a few hours to dry it out completely, and then use it again and again for months. This is the perfect thing for a closet that smells of must, a car, a cupboard under the stairs. It costs almost nothing, and it renews itself in the sun for free. There is the true spirit of matanai, a thing you use and dry and use again that never needs replacing. The third and the most important of all, for it addresses the root and not only the symptom, air and movement. The damp gathers worst where the air is trapped and still. The closed closet, the sealed room, the corner where nothing stirs. So while your crystals do their quiet work, help them. On a dry day, throw open the windows for an hour and let the air move through and carry the moisture out. Pull the wardrobe away from the cold outer wall an inch or two so the air can pass behind it and it does not sweat against the cold plaster. Do not dry your wet washing indoors in a closed room, for a single load of wet clothes can pour pints of water into the air of your home. Hang it outside or in a room with a window cracked open. Open the bathroom window after a hot bath or shower, or the steam will settle into every cold surface of the house. These cost nothing at all, and together with your crystals, they will keep a home dry that would otherwise be forever damp. The crystals catch the moisture that is there. Good air keeps more from gathering. Use both, and the damp has nowhere left to hide. And there is one more small wisdom I would give you on the black mold that damp brings, for it is the true danger in all of this. Damp is not merely uncomfortable. The black mold that grows in a damp room can harm the lungs, and the old and the young feel it worst of all. If you already have a little mold in a damp corner, wipe it away with plain white vinegar, that same humble bottle from your kitchen, which kills the mold at its roots far better than most people know, and costs $1. Then set your crystals nearby to keep that corner dry, and the mold, having no more damp to feed on, will not return. Dry the air, and you starve the mold. It is that simple and that important. Let me tell you about my grandmother, for she is in every word of this, and in the very bowl beside my bed. Our old wooden house stood close to the sea, in air so thick with salt and moisture that a pair of leather shoes left in a closet would grow a coat of green mold in a week if you did not watch them. And yet my grandmother's closets were always dry, her clothes always fresh, her stored food never spoiled by the damp. She kept her cloth bags of salt crystals in every wardrobe and cupboard, low on the floor, and every week she would take out the bowls, pour away the water they had gathered, and marvel at it. "Look," she would say to me, holding up the bowl, "look how much wet was hiding in the air, that we could not see." She taught me that the damp is not a thing to be endured, as the neighbors endured it with their rotting cupboards and their musty rooms, but a thing to be quietly, patiently mastered, for pennies, by anyone who understands it. She never owned a machine. She never paid a bill to dry her air. And her house, in the wettest corner of a wet island, was the driest and the sweetest smelling I have ever known. When I pour away the water from my bowl each morning, I hear her voice. Look how much wet was hiding in the air. And I understand that she was never speaking only of the water. And this is the whole of Madanai. It is not only the saving of the $200 for the machine and the $30 a month to run it, though that money is real and it matters. It is the deeper thing beneath the money, the refusal to believe that every problem in a home must be solved by a plastic machine and a monthly bill. The knowing that the damp air which troubled our grandmothers and their grandmothers before them was mastered long ago by people with nothing but salt and cloth and understanding, and that their knowledge is not lost, only forgotten, and waiting for you to pick it up again. There is a freedom in that, the freedom of a person who is not at the mercy of the machine and the meter, who can keep their own home dry and sweet and healthy with a $5 bag from the bottom shelf. And there is a dignity in it, especially for those of us who have grown older and who live now on what does not grow, the fixed income, the careful budget, the watched dollar, the dignity of solving a real trouble in your home with your own understanding, cheaply, well, and forever, and of keeping your money in your own pocket where it belongs, instead of pouring it out to the machine makers and the power company for a thing you could do for pennies. To keep a dry, warm, healthy home in your later years without fear of the bill, that is not a small thing. That is peace. So tell me, in the comments below, where in the world do you live, and which room in your home is the damp one, the one that smells of must, or grows the mold, or chills your bones in the wet season? Tell me your place and your damp corner. I read every message that comes to me, and I would dearly love to know who among you sets out a bowl of crystals this week and pours away, for the very first time, the water that was hiding all along in the air of your home. And the next time we sit together, I will show you what my grandmother did to keep an entire room warm in the damp cold of winter, using only the heat she already had, a way of stopping the warmth from escaping through the cold glass of the windows, with nothing but a material you likely already own, that cost her nothing at all, and that could cut the cost of heating a room by a third. It is the reason her house was warm when the neighbors, with all their heating, was cold. Until then, waste nothing, master the damp, and remember always that the people who lived closest to the earth understood things that we, with all our plastic machines and all our monthly bills, are only now beginning to remember once again.